Sembra che ci siamo.
Bene.
Okay, hello everybody and welcome. Today we are with Max Geraci and we are ready to talk about EEAT and structured data and how to use ChatGPT to automate some boring tasks and improve your SEO. So before to start, just remember that you can write your questions in the chat and we will see them at the end of the webinar. So welcome to Max and please introduce yourself and start the presentation.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Max Geraci. I'm an SEO specialist, specifically interested in semantic SEO, structured data, and artificial generative intelligence. Today, we are going to dive into an exciting topic, at least to me, EEAT, as well as the product review updates that we have seen during the last 2 years. I'll explore this concept, especially in relation to niche sites monetized through advertising or affiliate marketing or a mix of both. I chose this topic because niche sites are sites among my areas of expertise, both with clients and personal side projects, and because affiliate marketing is overlooked in the SEO world. There is a clear divide between blogs, YouTube shows, often targeting the passive income audience, and many SEO professionals working in different industries who treat affiliate marketing as if it were in a sort of gray area. While it's true that affiliate marketing is a market where spam is frequently produced, it's also a space where SEO often need to be highly creative, inventive to outperform competitions in crowded niches. It's always an exciting challenge to work on this type of sites. Niche sites are indeed real businesses. And although it may sound silly, odd, some hobbyists or small affiliates may not fully grasp this concept to be a business. And as we see, it's central considering the new updates. EEAT and PRU, product review updates, are closely intertwined. In the official guidelines for creating high-quality product reviews, the concept of expertise, the new E introduced in the December 22 QRG update, is explicitly mentioned. Similarly, the new QRG references review pages as an example of how experience affects trust. After introducing the concepts, I show you what this means in practice for those managing niche sites, whether at an amateur or professional level. We'll start with some slides, and then I'll demonstrate some practical implementation on y2mate.com, a website that I manage. For instance, we'll examine how implementing structured data and entity linking on the editorial team and individual author pages result in the site being refeatured in Google Discover after 9 months of absence. Entity linking is the operation of connecting the topic that we declare we are talking about in an article to specific entities listed in public databases like the wikis, Wikidata, Wikipedia, DPpedia, and so on. Today, it's not possible to talk about language models and how to use ChatGPT or GPT Da Vinci for SEO. And who am I to not ride these hype waves? So I will show you some example of using GPT, both for generating some of the repetitive tasks and also to create a sort of rating system based on your editorial guidelines. I will use again way of martial arts as an example to show you how we've worked with this implementation of the guidelines and the rating system. So let's begin with the slides explaining the EEAT framework, and then we'll do a fast overview of the product review updates The slides will be published on SlideShare with my script, the Google Sheet I'll show, and all the extensions that I'll present will be linked in the presentation. So we can start with the slides. And yes. EEAT. Let's dive into the QRG update and the new experience introduction. In the latest updates of the Google Quality Rater guidelines, the most significant change is the introduction of this additional E to the popular acronym EEAT, which now stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Adding experience highlights the importance of evaluating content quality based on the creator first-hand experience on the topic, or in our case, on a service or product. With this change, Google emphasized that trust is the more critical aspect of EEAT, as untrustworthy pages have low EEAT regardless of how experienced, expert, or authoritative they may seem. So the trust is at the center, or we can state that it emerges from the other three dimensions, the 2E and the A. Some notable changes that were introduced in December 22, so during the last update, regard finding who is responsible for website and who created the content. So in the first edition, they just asked the manual reviewer to check for the responsible of the site, and now they explicitly add the content creator. This is a very crucial point when we'll see how to bring back these abstract guidelines to concrete implementation on our websites. They also introduced an overall page quality rating in 3 steps for assessing the quality. And this new 3-step process focus on the purpose of the page, the potential harm or trustworthiness, and how well the page achieved the purpose. So again, this concept of the purpose of the page and how the purpose influence how the quality rater have to judge a page. Main content quality, the so-called MC, Google emphasized the amount of effort, originality, skill, or talent required to create the page. Originality is a new introduction. In the first version of the QRG, they talked about time. Originality is so important change, in my opinion, because it seems to directly target the AI generation. So the point is not how much time did the page require you to create it, but if it's original or not. And then again, the reputation of the content creators. So the raters are invited to consider his reputation or her reputation, visiting the social channels and doing a lot of cross-referencing between different sites to assess if the reputation is really good or not. All the SEOs should take the time to read the Google's guidelines, because they represent the direction Google wants algorithms to head towards. But let's be a bit provocative here. This implies that Google's algorithms aren't quite there yet, and perhaps they will never be, as I suppose in some cases, because some manual review can be more feasible and more economic than algorithmically implement it. And so this is just something that we as SEOs have to ponder as we move in this ever-change landscape for SEO. In my approach, I embrace the concept of minimum valuable SEO, that's been implementing single elements, optimizing step by step, factors after factors, ranking factors, I mean, by measuring the impact of each subsequent change. And this allows us to evaluate whether the effort is worth it based on the results achieved, and then to transfer the current implementation, the successful one, to other part of the site, to other pages. Before diving into details of how Google defines experience, expertise, and trust, authoritativeness, I want to emphasize that from the perspective of the algorithm's functioning, it's all about identifying markers. Markers can be specific words present on a page level that indicate experience and expertise, and I will share our guidelines, editorial guidelines, showing some of the specific word of way to phrase the sentences. And on the site level, there are other markers like the phone numbers, and this is strictly tied to demonstrating that there is a real business behind the site, and the phone number, the email addresses for each department, anything that can assess the legitimacy of the business managing the site. I will discuss each point and showcase some simple implementations of these markers that anyone managing some niche sites should always incorporate. And then, after the examples shown on the slides, we'll see the editorial guidelines too. So, experience. Experience is the dimension that Google explicitly refers to product reviews. They bring an example, as you can see highlighted on the slide, a product review from someone who has personally used the product, or a review by someone who has not. So, which would you trust? The point is showing the creator, the writers, first-hand life experience with the topic. I consider this experience strictly tied to a temporal dimension, because you have to use a product or a service, or manage a topic for sufficient length of time, extension of time, to be considered an expert in that topic, or with the product or service. Some key factors to consider when building experience on your niche site include using contextual terms. As I've said, we'll see them in depth later, and what Google can expect to see that demonstrate that a person has experience. We have always to consider that Google, even if with all the machine learning based features or the AI introduction, is always considering, at least at the firstly, your page as a bag of words. So it needs to find the specific semantic markers or some other markers to establish if you are experienced or you are an expert. So this, to avoid the confusion that to be an expert or to have expertise implies that you need a PhD on the topic or something similar. Expertise, if you look at the icon, it is clearly tied to education. Remember that the QRG is a tool to teach humans to evaluate a page. Unlike a bot, a human can go beyond what's possible for a machine. For example, a human can perform cross-checks to demonstrate expertise. Google focuses on recognizing that there is a real person behind the website. This is the most vital point. Suppose that the structured data related to the author declares a degree referencing a university that awarded it. In that case, it's not economically feasible for a bot to verify whether the degree is real or not. Of course, if the author is present as an entity within the Google's knowledge graph, the verification of their credential would be nearly instantaneous. A bot is a bot, and it's always important to highlight that Google cannot express value judgments. A concrete example in the y2mate topic, affiliate sites treating medical stuff, or even informative site treating medical stuff, for example. Google cannot evaluate if a doctor graduated from the Harvard Medical School is better than an Italian doctor who had a degree from a public university in a small town in southern Italy. And this is a very important point. The bot can establish that a person authors the page, but in case of strong suspicion, algorithmically triggered, they need human to check the search results following the QRG. Google seeks to assess the quality of a page following the guides, but it needs to do so in a way that is quick and cost-effective for a bot to handle. And many SEOs need to pay more attention, in my opinion, to the massive scale of Google's operations, not realizing that relying on human raters for complex tasks might be more economical in some specific cases like this one. I often hear SEOs, even recently some famous SEOs, saying if there are tools like, let's say, originality.ai can detect whether a content is human written, don't you think that Google can do that too? Sure, Google can do that, but at what cost and with what environmental impact? These are essential questions that we have to ask ourselves before going mad, thinking how we can avoid to being detected if we use some AI or other stuff like that. We'll see more that how can AI can be safely used. And again, don't think that Google can just turn on a feature to scan every page on the web to say if they are human written. They can flag a page and then do some more in-depth checking on the page itself. Some key factors that we can consider for manifesting our expertise in our niche sites include to present a real person or team responsible for the content, create the author bio pages, and use a schema markup on them, highlight the qualifications and certifications, set up the Meet the Team page with links to all the individual bios, set up social media profiles, both for the site and the authors, and also use Google Books. This is a very underused service from Google. People tend to think that it's only for academic papers, but it can be leveraged even for articles or ebooks or other things that an author has written. The authoritativeness is not about being the authority, the recognized authority even outside the web in your space. Instead, it can be seen as topical authority, which essentially means covering the breadth of a topic and answering all the questions. Some key factors even here to include on the page. Again, focus on the topical authority, ensure comprehensive coverage of a topic, and answer all related questions. Aim to rank for various topical keywords, and even if they are very competitive, you have to create them for the purpose of having a complete coverage of your topic. Especially for new sites, you can start creating some supporting pages to target the more important pages. And you can use PAA style articles. Even if I have to say that from what I've seen recently, assessing the exact way in which the PAA is formulated on the Google SERP is not the best way to go. So we can select the questions and then rephrase them, maintaining the original meaning, but don't just use a list of common questions scraped from the SERP and answer them. It worked years ago. It's pure spam in some way, and especially if you just scrape them and give them to GPT to generate automatic answers. And this seemed to not working anymore, and many sites based only on PAA were blown away with the last two product updates and useful content updates. So you can also target zero search volume keywords using tools like low-hanging fruits, low fruits, or Keyword Chef. And again, you have to write all the articles to cover the topic, even if they are really too competitive for your specific site to rank for. Trust, as we've seen at the beginning, is the most important member of the EEAT family, as Google stated, and the experience, expertise, and authoritativeness essentially work together, are orchestrated together to demonstrate the trust, so that your site is trustworthy. Some key factors when building trust include showing your local phone number and address, the team page with information about the team, the other page with the bios, the schema markup, using for the organizational schema the SMAP, because this ties more strongly to a real physical existence of the business, and have the Google News approval if possible, especially for the informative sites, and then the privacy policy, cookie policy, GDPR, and so on. Many niche site owners work from home, and they prefer not to disclose this information. In such common cases, it's necessary to use services that assign virtual addresses and phone numbers to the business. So again, for Google, the most important thing is demonstrating that there is a real business, and again, affiliation site or a site monetizing in any possible way is a business. So you have to consider it as a business. You have to create the minimal business infrastructure that you can show on your page. Again, Google is not in the business of making value judgments. So what you have to present is the basic information, like a same as attribute point to LinkedIn, because we know from the knowledge graph that LinkedIn is one of the resources that Google uses to generate the description of the person entities if they are related to a business. And I really suggest to prefer to use, or even use, Wikipedia if possible, or Wikidata, which is easier to have, because we know for sure that Google crawls those databases, and we don't know for sure when Google crawl LinkedIn, and for sure it does not abandon your page just to cross-check. This cross-checking and going back to the original site is something that for now only the quality raters can do. Some basic technical SEO is necessary to demonstrate that the site is important for you. So avoid the 404 codes, the 500 codes, and stuff like that. An important question that many SEO continues to do is if there is a scoring system, an algorithm that exactly score the EEAT, and the official answer of Google, and they gave it in different situations and occasions, is absolutely not. Google has a collection, as Gary Eilish said, a collection of millions of tiny algorithms, and many of those baby algorithms look for signals in pages or content. And when you combine them, this can suggest that you are talking about a y2mate topic, or they can in some way suggest that you have a good EEAT on your page or site. As I've said, the QRG, the last version of the QRG, are strictly intertwined to the product review updates. We've had 6 updates in the last 2 years, starting from April 2021, and the last one was last February 21. This last update produced the more evident volatility in the SERP, both looking at numbers from SEMrush or Rank Ranger. They both recorded the strongest volatility after a product review update. Again, there are a lot of simple questions that Google invite all the site owners to ask themselves to try to understand if their review pages are really valuable and they really offer some useful insights to the readers. Some of these questions, as we can see in a few moments, can be used to create the guidelines and then a rating system based on that. We all know these questions, but I read just a couple. Does the review explain what a set of products apart from its competitors? Does it show what product is like physically or how it was used? What unique content beyond what the manufacturer provide? This is another very important point. Even if Google cannot really understand if you had the real experience with the actual product you are reviewing, it can easily understand if you are publishing a new handmade picture about the product. So it can derive from that information that you had the product in your hand before reviewing it. This is another important point because I'll show you some pages that we tweaked, just adding the structured data and then the custom photos and the result that these implementation produced. These are some specific results from Way of Martial Arts. Again, I'll show you the site. The first graphic is from Search Console, is from Discover. As you can see, the Discover impressions and clicks started just after our implementation of the structured data. We'll see specifically with which data we implemented in our markup. And then a page that I'm going to show you. This data is a keyword report, keyword ranking report, and these are confrontation over the January, when we tweaked the page, adding the schema and the original photos, and then the current ranking at the beginning of March. So as you can say, all the keywords rised a lot just after implementing implementing structured data. This screenshot is from the first week of March, so just after the 6th product review updates was released by Google. So I really think that, considering that the only new things on the page are structured data and photographs, it was reevaluated by the last update. So that's it for the slides. I close the presentation and I go to share my screen. Sorry for this. Are you seeing the screen, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. If someone has questions, want to do questions regarding the slides, I can answer them, or I can just go with the other part of the presentation and then answer.
We have a question, so maybe we can answer that now.
Now, okay.
So Antonio asked, do the recent helpful content updates have anything in common with the EEAT and product review updates?
Yeah. Okay. The helpful content update, we have seen 2 updates of this new algorithm, or something that now Google calls a system. And we can say that they are tied in some way, because for sure you have to offer helpful content, but for now we haven't seen exactly what this algorithm is doing. For many SEOs, it created a bit of confusion at the beginning, like if Google was trying to assess the AI-generated content. But as I've said, and as many recent declaration by Google spokesman demonstrate, AI-generated content per se is not a problem at all. The problem can be with the fact-checking, for sure. So with having a man in the loop and some editors who can edit the content. But it also has to do with the originality. As we have seen now, Google's in the EEAT requires originality. So a content to be helpful has to be original too, or at least to rank well. So this is a way how I see the connection between the 2 group of updates. The bridge is the quality of the content, and again, the crucial point is not if it's human written or AI written. So, okay, this is the page that I showed the results for. As you can see, we start with photos, original photos with our logo on them. I strongly believe that the presence of the logo is a key factor too, because it's a way for Google to move the responsibility to the author who is assessing the photo is original, so we can take a stock photo and put a logo on it. Then we have clear winners of our review. Google always want to see at the beginning of the article which are the winners, and now explicitly ask us to review each product using specific criteria that are tied to the product. So for martial art gears, it is maybe the padding; for the gloves, the padding, the durability, the comfort, and so on. Some other things that I want to show is the presence, again, a lot of original photos. Here we have some product blocks, and the content of the blocks is generated by AI. I will show you the workflow to do this. And at the end of the article, we have the FIQ and the author block, and we tend to start it with the titles, the credentials that can establish the level of expertise. So if your author has some kind of title, try to express it in the bio page and at the beginning of the summary of the author blog page. If we check the schema on that specific page, we can see that we have implemented a lot of them. We have the article, the FIQ, but we also implemented the review schema and the review schema with all the products. And for every product who is the seller, please remember, if you are affiliate to Amazon, to put the links to sponsored, because Google doesn't really like Amazon affiliate programs. So you have to respect these advice to put them as sponsored. And when you offer, I want to show you this just as an example that we are implementing. Google tend to ask to show alternatives to buy a product. We have just implemented these. We are tweaking this, so it's just for the purpose of this presentation. And we give two different opportunities. So we have to write the shop where it's possible to buy it. And we have also to insert in our schema that the reviewed item as an offer, the offer as this price, and the offer is made by a shop or a company, an organization called Amazon, and the alternative is another different seller. So we can immediately explain Google and give it in the header of the page all this information that clearly shows it that we respect, or at least that we state that we are respecting all of these guidelines. Now we can see how we can generate some of these content, because we know that sometimes writing every snippet of text inside the product description, then we have the human written review, but we need the summarization, and we also need a list of pros and cons, and you can ask the author to write them. But I think that using many external sources to collect reviews and then summarize them is a more correct way to do this. So we can use a Google Sheet for this. And this is a sheet with an add-on called Import from the Web, just for the purpose of scraping Amazon reviews. This is a paid add-on, but you can also use a free extension to do this. Just go to the all review pages. You can filter by stars. So if you want to write a pros list, you have to scrape the 4 and the 3 stars. And for the cons, the 2 stars and 3 stars, and for the pros, the 4 and the 5 stars. I avoid the 1 star because they are outliers. If you use this Amazon review export extension, this is free. I've tested many of them and this is working. You just click export the reviews and it says 10 exported or 20 exported, and you stop and you have your export. You can save it as an Excel file. But with this add-on, you can just insert the review and it scrapes them for you. Let's do an example. I take the reviews, it's 3 stars, and I put them here in my 3 stars. I then use a script, is a script that I've done for calling ChatGPT from inside Google Sheet. Again, I'll share the slides with the link to this sheet. So ChatGPT, and we select the prompt cell, and then we select the reviews that we scraped, and GPT should, there is a typo, yes, ChatGPT should do the magic, and using the prompt, it will create, yes, it will create this text, and there is the list of cons, and also some generated quote that can be used if you have a block for what users says about the product. We can also, I don't demonstrate it practically, but it's the same thing. We can use insert product URLs, and we decide what we want to scrape. So the description, the bullet points, the details, and again, we can call here the ChatGPT and select the prompt, and then make it generate our short description here, and the list of pros and cons are generated from there. Another thing that I really like to share with you is our editorial guidelines for Roundup reviews. They are specifically written for our martial arts experts. I just read a couple of them because they are specific suggestions of how to add the specific semantic markers to demonstrate their experience. All of our writers are experts, they are coaches, they are trainers. But you have to teach them how to correctly write to suggest Google that they are real experts, considering that there is a lot of fake experts in the affiliation space. So use first language person, or provide very specific details that only an expert can see. Add the feel factor. If I want to review a smartphone and I also say the specs, the dimension of the telephone in the smartphone itself, it's not enough. Everyone can share this kind of information. But if I say that it feels a little too big for my hand, this is a sharing of experience. If you look at the official icon of the experience, is a group of people. So it suggests that it's a sort of people sharing their experience between pairs. Share anecdotes, and only use phrases that start with, in my experience as a martial art expert, I found that. I remember using this product during a sparring session and noticing an immediate improvement. I recommend this product to my student, and so on. For the expertise, you can use a very specific jargon. You can provide some context. For example, as a black belt in karate and an instructor over a decade, I've tried a lot, and so on. You have to mention your relevant titles. So if you have a degree in physical education from a university, again, Google will not judge which the university. If one is more prestigious, this is stuff for humans. And some very specific terms that indicate that you have first-hand experience on the product. So hands-on experience, user experience, field testing, authentic review, unpaid review, and so on. And we have some advices even to demonstrate experience when you had the opportunity to have the product in your hand. You can curate, and there are a lot of successful projects just curating tons of reviews made by others, both reviews that you can find scrape from Amazon, from Reddit, from e-commerces, or even from YouTube. There is a site about sneaker, a famous use case study in affiliate space about sneakers, and they declare, so being transparent is important. They declare, I've collected 1,000 YouTube reviews, and this is the summary. Now we can scrape the reviews with an extension, or we can use Whisper API from OpenAI in a Google Sheet and provide the Google URL, and then it will transcribe the text, and then GPT can extract and summarize the text and write a comprehensive review. Starting from these guidelines that are human written, I asked the GPT to generate this prompt. This prompt is to evaluate an article that we can insert here, and then GPT will provide a scoring. I can share you this specific case. This is the prompt with the article sample, and then the two experience and expertise dimension synthesized in points. And when we ask GPT to evaluate the text, it says and why, and which are the markers that we are using or maybe that we are missing. It says experience 8, expertise 7, and then tell these some sentences or ways to improve them. For the expertise, for example, it says that there are no formal credential or qualifications in the text I provided. But then I tweaked the test, and I tweaked the author bio here and provided it again. So the bio explicitly tells that he is a professional coach and has 10 years of experience in jiu-jitsu. And so after we give this new text, now the evaluation changes. Experience 9 and expertise 8. You don't have to consider the scoring as a real number, as a real score. It's something that we know that GPT cannot count, is not so good with mathematics, but it's a clear indication of a rapport between two different evaluations. So if we previously had an 8 and a 7, and then we updated the text and tweaked it, and now we have 9 and 8, we know for sure that this is better. Maybe it's not the progression that GPT can really consider if expertise should be rated at 9 instead of 8. But again, 8 is better than 7. And it's not a surprise considering that we implemented the exact suggestion, so the indicators of the expertise through official, formal credentials and qualifications, like a degree or like being a professional coach for 10 years demonstrate. So this is a quick way. You can also create a prompt just starting from the Google product reviews guidelines. But I have to say that I prefer not to use these generic guidelines because they doesn't fit to every possible category of product. So I prefer to start from the human written editorial guidelines and then generate the prompt starting from them, and then again using the prompt as an experience and expertise rating system. I show with the structured data that we used, and we implemented them both on the review pages, but we also created all the entities for the authors on Wikidata. We created the structured data for the authors page, for the organization. We used WordLift to also create, inject some entities on taxonomy level. This is a very cool feature from WordLift. You can decide a tag or a category and then inject the same. For example, if I'm talking about MMA or karate, I can inject these as a mention entity inside all the articles that are in the category that I marked with WordLift. So again, another very cool thing, maybe I don't have the time to show it now, but another cool thing that you can do with WordLift is using its connector with Locker. And from the connector, you will see which author and which kind of review. For example, the one with the two sellers options worked better than others. So you can use your entities and your structured data as dimension that you can measure and visualize on the X Data Studio, now Locker Studio. And this is the only tool I'm aware of that can automatically create this layer of data to visualize and analyze, or for do some data blendings with data coming from analytics or whatever tool you use. The only tool that I'm aware of for the EEAT measuring is Page Optimizer Pro. And again, it's based just on measuring some markers. This idea of markers came to me from the tool, and maybe it will load, but again, it checks your site and your pages against the competitors. So it's always useful to do a competition analysis to examine if on the SERP our competitors are using the EEAT markers. Yes, we have this here. Again, this is the page that I showed you, and we are using all the markers that he suggests to use, the privacy policy, all the on-site level markers. The semantical markers that I showed you are used on a page level. No one of my competitors right now is using any of these elements on the site. I don't know if it's one of the signals that Google is using to rank this page as #1 for the main keyword best boxing gloves. What I can say is that the only tweak that we have done is adding the pictures and the structured data, and to tweak the bio to let it express expertise from our expert writer. So that's it for my presentation. I hope that some of the advices and the practical things that we have done on this site can inspire you to implement. I'm particularly interested in this case because our tweaks came just before the new product review update. And as I've said, it was the one showing the max volatility on the SERP. So being a winner after these important product review updates suggest to me that we are doing well what we are doing to demonstrate Google EEAT and the respect of the product review guidelines.
Okay, thank you, Max. We have a couple of questions. So they are asking if your web page have a low traffic volume, is not possible to create a Wikipedia page?
Can you repeat? If my page has a lot of traffic?
If
okay, I read it. If a web
yeah.
page has a lot of web traffic. Well, it's possible to create a Wikipedia page for a business like that or a site like that if it's notable enough. You know that Wikipedia is very strict with notability. I've tried with one of the authors to create a Wikipedia page, but it didn't stick because he was not notable enough, because he was not competing in a major league in his sport, in his combat sport. But I've created some Wikidata entities, which is easier to have. The notability criteria are not so strict. And I've also created some pages on alternative wikis, like Everyone Wiki. And so we have the brand page on all the most important alternative to Wikipedia. And the site was approved by Google News. It wasn't in the news, but after entering in Discover, we started the process for the acceptance in Google News, and it worked. And yes, that's it. Another important thing is for Discover is the dimension of the pictures. We have upscaled them all. I remember that Andrea Volpini did a collab for the image improvement using some AI upscaler. That was a workflow that I used too for some minor sites. This one was a big one, so we use another workflow, but the concept is exactly what Andrea explained, and I really recommend to do this on your site if it's an old site and the minimum dimension that is 1,200 dots, but I prefer to go with 1,600 dots was the minimum request for Discover. I really suggest you to rescale and upscale your pictures.
Yeah, I'm just, I'll share the article that Andrea Volpini wrote, so you can read. And everybody wants to know if you can share your editorial guidelines.
Sure.
And if you can share also the ChatGPT prompts.
Yeah, I'll put all the links on the slides. I'll give you the link of the slides if you can put it in the video description. And on the slide, there will be the link to the tools and the sheet. I can share it with my script in it, with my prompt in it. And I can also share the editorial guidelines. This is not the kind of document that people tend to share, but I really consider this useful because we don't see many guidelines where there is specific indications on how the writer has to write to be recognized. Because my case was particular. The writers were expert and were there since many years, but they were not framed in the proper way so that Google could recognize their experience and expertise. And we need to use a lot of signals and even wording to be recognized in this way. So I think that the editorials line can be a really valuable document for SEOs, because we talk about abstract guidelines, but then we have to translate them in something that our writers can use.
Okay.
So sure,
Yeah.
I'll share them.
Okay, perfect. So everything is here. Everything will be shared on the page with the presentation that Max will give us. I can say thank you, Max, for your time, and thank you everybody for to be with us today. And I hope you found interesting this webinar, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.